Manga wasn't a medium I was very versed in until about a year ago. And looking back on it now, it feels like I was sleeping on a gold mine because the sheer variety of stories this medium has is insane. Be it psychologicals, romance, whatever it is you want, you can find it in manga. Last year I read about 28 mangas, give or take, because there's some I just didn't finish after starting. So this is basically just me giving a run through, just skimming through the mangas I read last year, give it their strengths and weaknesses, and then give them a rating. I will cover some of these stories in a much deeper form in later videos, so if that's something you're interested in, stick around. Land of the Lost Trust is first and foremost a deeply philosophical story than it is one of identity and change, which I think is basically the embodiment of Ford's character. But then again, it can be very abstract at times and withhold emotion from kind of weaving through into the audience. Either way, not every masterpiece needs to be emotional, and Land of the Lost Trust basically proves that. 9.2 out of 10. A story which does emotion really well is Tomodachi Game for me. It started off strongly. The author wasted no time getting the plot started. The premise itself was very intriguing. It's not something I could ignore. The manga was amazing. I enjoyed every bit of it. But about 20% of the way through, it just started feeling repetitive to me. Yuichi kept getting out of impossible situations you normally wouldn't expect someone to get out of, and it just kind of reduced the stakes of the games. Either way, it was an amazing read and I still enjoyed it. 8.7 out of 10. Random Chat isn't a manga, it's a manhwa, but I decided I would include manhwas in it as well since overall I didn't read much last year. It's very divisive as a story. It uses repetition extremely well, almost to an annoying level. It has a very huge cast and each character is well written. They all have their own personalities. A lot of them are fillers. The realism is insane. It was very entertaining, and if you're planning to read this, fair warning, the first half can be very frustrating. Even I, as a huge fan of the story, can testify to that. But if you stick through it, the catharsis at the end of it is insane, including the character development. 9.6 out of 10. 2.5 Dimensional Seduction is relatively unknown. It's just a chill romance story. Nothing stands out from it except for the main character. He is genuinely one of the best written characters I've ever come across in anime manga. He is one of my favorite characters as well, and I strongly recommend you checking it out. It's basically a manga that covers cosplay and otaku culture in general, but the main character's whole premise of being into 2D girls rather than 3D girls becomes a catalyst for one of the best explorations of self-hatred and self-love simultaneously. 8.2 out of 10. 5 centimeters per second is one of my favorite stories of all time. I watched the anime first, got into the manga because I was quite frustrated with the ending. I believe a lot of people were. The manga's ending was a lot more conclusive than that of the anime, and it kind of gave me a better sense of closure. The emotional resolution as well ties back to what I just said, and I do plan on going in a lot more depth in a later video. 9.5 out of 10. Domestic Girlfriend is extremely overhated. Sure, it handles what we'd call a social taboo, but I believe it does it really well. That's in the manga, of course. A lot of people just ended with the anime because they just completely closed the eyes and ears to anything that tries to help them understand what the story is trying to explore. I did read the manga, obviously that's why it's on the list. The drama was insanely gripping and the conclusion was very divisive as well, but I think it was okay to me. 8.5 out of 10. Dusk Maiden of Amnesia was something I picked up in the middle of the night, not recommended by anyone, and I think it's a good story overall. The romance is solid, it's very enjoyable to read. The themes themselves are quite underrated, and I feel like I may go much deeper into this as well in a later video. 7.7 out of 10. Girls Last Tour was recommended to me by one of you guys. I watched the anime first and then got into the manga. My rating changed from 7.9 for the anime to about 8.9 out of 10 for the manga. It's a very philosophical story, even more so than Land of the Lost Trust. It handles this apocalyptic scenario in a very optimistic way that just kind of makes you fall in love with the apocalyptic world they live in. The author does a job really well in exploring multiple themes in a way that doesn't feel too compact. 8.9 out of 10. Goodbye Eri is one of Tatsuki Fujimoto's earlier works. I understand the point of the story. I get what he's trying to do with it. I appreciate the writing, but this is just not for me. It's a lot more technical than it is emotional. I know me wanting it to be emotional is a bias, but that's just how I operate. 7 out of 10. 3 Days of Happiness is one of the best stories I've ever come across in my entire life. It blends its philosophical themes with emotion so perfectly. The romance is absolutely beautiful. The conclusion was genuinely perfect. And for how short it is, the manga is 14 or so chapters, but it's executed flawlessly. You must read this if you are a manga fan. I highly recommend it. 10 out of 10. Inotokuzo was a recommendation by one of you as well, and it was a good read. The psychological mystery was very well done. It kept me clicking next chapter every single time. Overall, it was a very entertaining read, and 7.5 out of 10. Parasite in Love is another manga I read just a few days after 3 Days of Happiness, a random pick as well, but surprisingly, it didn't disappoint. Although I do feel like the execution could have been done better, it wasn't particularly bad. The concept is really good. The symbolism is just woven into the narrative extremely well, and I will have to reread this in the near future. 8.3 out of 10. Leviathan is very overrated to me. It's not particularly bad. It was a good read. It's a good manual, but it's just not at the level a lot of people proclaim it to be. 7 out of 10. Mythic item obtained is just pure dopamine to me. Not much to say about it. 5 out of 10. Now, Onani Master Kurosawa is something that's a little difficult for me to talk about. It's not because of the way it's presented, but more about its reception. Obviously, he has really good themes, redemption and self-growth. Those were done really well. It's very realistic in its character work as well. The characters felt like real human beings you could relate and connect to. The resolution at the end wasn't clean, which fits the manga's entire goal, its entire concept. It is slightly overrated, however. 8 out of 10. Pandora Hearts is very difficult to talk about. It is a well-written story, and I do understand why a lot of people would have this in the top 5, top 3, even top 1. But it kind of had a slow start and was very confusing for about the first 30 chapters. The only reason I was able to push through was because of the constant reassurance of how peak it is towards the end. And fair play, it was peak towards the end. The character writing is insanely well. The plot twists were so beautifully done, but the slow start kind of reduces my overall impression of the story. 8.9 out of 10. Solo Leveling was just an entertaining read. Not much else to say about it. 7 out of 10. SSS Class Revival Hunter is relatively unknown to anyone outside of the manhwa community. The MC is a very likable person. He's optimistic without being idealistic. The arcs were so well done, especially the romance arc, and I feel like this manhwa is extremely underrated. If you're someone who likes emotional depth, if you like crying to stories, then this would probably get at least a tear out of you. 8.7 out of 10. The Extras Academy Survival Guide is just an enjoyable read. It was extremely entertaining though. The MC is a hardworking person, emotional depth was on point. I saw a few hints at something much deeper in the MC's personality and character. 8 out of 10. Doki Doki was a one-shot I read in the middle of the night. Plot twist towards the end was fairly okay. The message it tries to get across is basic but important as well. So 6.5 out of 10. Tokyo Ghoul didn't really do much for me since I already watched the entirety of the anime before getting to the manga, but it wasn't bad either. I will say though the execution was a lot better in the manga. 8.4 out of 10. Webtoon character Nakan Ling was a very enjoyable read. The story is basically taking the return by death concept from ReZero and handling it in an optimistic way. The last one of chapters was absolutely insane. Enjoyed it so much. 8.6 out of 10, but on an enjoyment scale, it's closer to a 9 to me. Yeah, I'm serious. Chain Soldier is just a guilty pleasure. Not much else to say about it. Nothing special, nothing outstanding. 4 out of 10. Tonikaku Kawaii is the absolute best slice of life romance anime I've ever read. It's so chill, it's so enjoyable. It's a slice of life, but you wouldn't get bored for a single second. The drama is entertaining. The relationship between Sukusa and her husband Nasa it's just such a pure and cute thing to see. Sukusa's character depth herself is kind of underrated with her memories. The lore of the entire story is insanely impressive, and it's gotten more expansive in the last few chapters that have been released. and I feel like the story is headed towards a new turn. 9.5 out of 10. More Than a Married Couple by None of Us was the first manga I ever read. It was an entertaining romance, but compared to the rest of the other stories on this list, except for say Mythic Item Obtained and Chain Sold, it doesn't have much else to offer. But in terms of a romance, it's one of my favorites. 8.3 out of 10. Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint is one of my favorite manuals. The character dynamics are good, the lore is pretty good, and I have the novel on my list as well. 9.1 out of 10. The Infinite Mage was an average story, but the main character just made me absolutely detest the entire thing. I don't like him at all. He's too much of a good at two shoes, and yeah, I just didn't like it because I didn't like the main character. 5 out of 10. We Never Learn was an average rom-com. Got into the manga after watching the anime. I was just sort of bored one day and I just picked up the manga on this average rom-com I watched a few months ago. It was nothing outstanding. It wasn't boring either though, but it became very repetitive. 6 out of 10.